Okay, we're going to begin. We're going to do something that different than we've been doing until now. I actually brought a book of the Rebbe's Mechtavim Klolim, general letters, that the Rebbe would write out L'chol B'nei Yisrael, B'chol Makim Shehem, that the Rebbe would write a few times a year, like before Rosh Hashanah, the days of Slichas, or before Pesach, or by the Rebbe's birthday, I think Yud Shvat also. There are certain times when the Rebbe would write out somewhat annually a Mechtav Kloli, and there's one very famous one that touches on a famous Pesach discussion, as we're a week before Pesach, which is Pesach's the time of freedom, right? The time that we were made B'nei Chayrin. We used to be slaves, and then we were made free people. And when you look at the way people handle Pesach and what Pesach demands of us, it doesn't seem like it makes us very free, right? Which opens up the discussion, what exactly does it mean to be free? And I don't think that's what freedom was meant to look like. And if it is, who signed me up?
1 second. Spring cleaning has nothing to do with Pesach cleaning.
Okay, spring cleaning, but then the kidney has been freaking out when matzah falls on the floor, and then if water touches it, and I'm over-exaggerating and elaborating to bring out the point, but what exactly does it mean to be a free person? So there's a nekuda that the Rebbe brings out in his Torah that I can't say better than the Rebbe says, so I just figured we'll read through it and we'll make it an open discussion. Let's start. It's not very long, it's a 2-page letter. So to all Jewish brethren everywhere, God bless you all. This is from the year 5718, Tafshin Chai. Greetings and blessings. Each Yom Tov has its own distinct content, hence also its own special message and teaching, which concern all those to whom the festival has been given, every Jew as an individual, as well as a member of the Jewish people and the Jewish people as a whole. The character of each Yom Tov is reflected and expressed in its name, and the precepts, laws, and customs which are associated with on this particular festival, right? Each holiday has its own message, has its own meaning, but it's there to give over to the Jewish people, a special energy that we can all tap into. One of the main highlights of the festival of Pesach is indicated in the name that the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah gave to the festival, which is Man Chirusenu, which means the time of our freedom. For the Torah, which is called Teras Chaim, being our guide in life, demands of each Jew to remember, i.e., to experience the freedom which came with a liberation from Egypt each day of his life, to quote our sages, from Egypt. In other words, we're actually meant to feel something emotionally. I saw somewhere the Rebbe says to almost picture yourself in bondage. Pesach is meant to be experiential. Notice your own bondages, see where you're stuck in life, like imagine you're in Egypt actually, and then imagine you're actually leaving Egypt. Whatever emotional stresses there are in having people, you being defenseless, no guns. Shout out to David Leib, because we're in free America. Your oppressors have guns. One wrong move, they take your kids, putting your babies as bricks in. Imagine the emotion of what that came to. Think like no slaves have ever escaped this country, and then one day miracles happen and you're free. To walk through that emotional journey to really experience the freedom. This injunction and demand has been made upon every generation of Jews during the time of the royal house from the royal house of David, has been reigning for generations, as also in the darkest times of exile and extermination, may the merciful one spare us. Likewise, it is made upon every Jew and every day, even though he experienced the release from bondage yesterday, he is to relive it again today and again tomorrow. For this is the meaning of liberation of Egypt in the attainment of freedom from obstacles and limitations, which the Jew encounters in his way to self-fulfillment, hindering him from reaching his destiny and from accomplishing what he must. So far, the Rebbe is really saying that the point of Pesach is freedom, and it's something that we're meant to experience, and to experience not only once a year, but daily. This is why the freedom which he experienced yesterday does not hold good for his position instead of today, and his attainment today will prove inadequate tomorrow. To get a clearer and better understanding of what has been said above, let us consider an analogy from nature. And this is where the Rebbe goes into what exactly it means to be free. On the level of plant life, we would consider a plant completely free from all anxiety and hindrance when it has been fully provided with all things needed for its growth. Water, air, although it cannot move from its place, being condemned to remain rooted to its spot all its life, nevertheless it enjoys the fullest freedom of plant life. So long as it remains a plant, it is truly free. So what the Rebbe is saying over here is that freedom is relative to your identity and your essence. In other words, a plant's freedom is different than an animal freedom, right? Take a plant, put a plant in the ground, leave it stuck in one place, but give it solid soil, water, sunlight, space to grow. Is it stuck or is it free? In a sense, it's stuck in its place in the ground, right? So if the tree's saying this is too much for me and I'm too anxious being in one place, just remove some of the dirt around me so I'll have more room to express myself. You actually didn't let it express itself, you actually hurt it. Right? Because a tree's definition is to be Tzameach means that it's rooted properly in the ground. And when you gave it loose roots, then you didn't make it a free tree. To be a free tree, it needs to be rooted in its place in the ground, and therefore it retains its identity of freedom for it being a tree. Right? An animal, however, as the Rebbe continues, even when it's fully provided with its needs in the way of food, water, just like a plant, yet is forcibly confined to one place, such confinement would spell the uttermost deprivation for it, and a most dreadful imprisonment, inasmuch as it would be denied that which is essential aspect of its being. Right? If an animal gives this, hey, look, this tree's telling me it's happy. It's in one place. It has water, nutrients, sunlight. So animal, let's plant you to the ground and I'll give you everything. I'll give you dog food, if I have to give the dog some dog food, give him sunlight, give him space for his branches to grow. This is what freedom looks like. And the dog would obviously tell you, if it could talk, that this is not freedom. For me, this is prison. For the tree, this is freedom, but for me, it's prison because I am not a tree. I am a dog. So what's freedom for a dog? Whatever allows the essence of doghood to express itself, which includes, obviously, movement and the ability to run around and play, right? If it doesn't have that, then it's stuck. Even though if the tree had that, it would be toxic. But when the dog has it, it's called freedom. In the case of a human being, inasmuch as man's distinction is that of the intellect, if he is given also freedom of movement, yet he be excluded from intellectual activity, he would be a prisoner held in the kind of capacity which deprives him of his essential entity. So interesting, here's where it gets more complicated, right? So let's say we give a human animals freedom. We say, I'll give you food, I'll give you travel, I'll give you hotel stays, just no mental clarity, no ability to actually sit and think for yourself. So that sounds a little bit more tempting, right? The animal's freedom for the plant sounds like he's really stuck. But imagine a human has animals.
Is it intellectual freedom or is it stimuli freedom? Because you're saying you go to a hotel, you go to
right.
That is...
Yeah, but for the essence of being, for a healthy human being, that seemingly shouldn't be enough if they're not actually advancing in pursuit of meaning and living a productive life.
To view Mount Rushmore, Mount Everest.
Okay,
why is that meaningful? Why is that meaningful? No, why is that meaningful?
I'm saying,
actually, why is that
what needs
meaningful?
Or why is the view beautiful?
Oh.
Okay, I'll give you a better example. Eat the same food, the same everything every single day. No one's gonna
Right,
enjoy it.
So he's saying that doesn't have stimuli. I don't think that's what the Rebbe is saying over here, though.
It has to be.
It has to be intellectual, but I don't think that means it has to include intellectual, rigorous brain work. I think that seichel, in what makes a human different than an animal, as it says in Hayom Yom, is that a human has the capability to look up. An animal can only see its face and below. So famous is Man's Search for Meaning from Viktor Frankl, which is the essence. What's the essence of a human? What's in the subconscious that drives us to do everything we do? And his explanation, which has been widely accepted, is that man's search for meaning. People are looking for connection, for things to mean something for them. But they don't have that, then they're dead on the inside, and then it's only a matter of time till the body catches up. So family, I'm sure, could do this, or someone could put their head towards advancing relationships, or things that have actual substance and meaning, not necessarily abstract intellect, I think, so far. But that's in a human. Again, it becomes a bit more subtle in the difference of a human and an animal, but give a human animal's freedom, it seems like it works in the short term, but obviously because he's a human, and therefore he has that intellect which differentiates him from the animal, so really, you just like the animal when you gave him the plant's freedom, you gave him prison, so to a human, if you give him an animal's freedom, you gave him prison. But in the short term, it could be enjoyable, but you gave him prison. What's the famous story of Yekusiel Lepler, who was offered by the Alter Rebbe Arichas Yamim to live many years, and he said, I don't want peasant years when we have eyes but we don't see, years when we have ears when we don't hear. And it's just doing thing to thing and just getting stimulated. That I don't consider life. Likewise, so now we take it one step further. Likewise, in the realm of intellect itself, he who is capable of the highest intellectual achievement, right, if someone has stronger capabilities, yet is constrained to a life of childlike mentality, surely this is the most painful restraint upon his true self. And if such a restriction be self-imposed, when a person dissipates his years, intellect, and capabilities in pursuit of his physical needs, and the gratification of his lower appetites to the exclusion of all else, surely such a self-imposed enchainment is, in many respects, even more dreadful and more tragic in its consequences as it's self-imposed. Okay, so this seemingly covers the food chain, right? We've gone through Tzameach, we've gone through Chai, which is the animals, and then we've gone through Medaber, which is people. Now the Rebbe takes us to the other layer of the food chain, which is a Jew, and how a Jew is different than a human. As for Jews, of whom each and every one possesses a divine soul, a veritable part of God above. So a Jew's essence isn't just that he has an intellect, he also has God consciousness, right? We're the chosen people because we have God consciousness. Does that make us better? No, it just means that we have more God consciousness, which could be better or could be much worse. It just means that our Wi-Fi consciousness of God is a bit stronger. So when we're doing wrong things, it bothers us much more. If we're not actually embracing it, it makes us do much crazier things to try to coat that voice. And if we're engaging it, then we get a close connection to Hashem. Fine, so a Jew has a part of God, which even while it is shrouded in the animal soul and confined in a clay frame, is yet inseparably bound to Ein Sof, the infinite. Its impelling quest for true freedom and release from bondage is ceaseless and infinite. It cannot rest in one place. With each day, as the soul progressively rises higher by means of Torah mitzvahs, which brings it closer to Ein Sof, it experiences a deep and innermost feeling of whatever state it has attained the day before. It has today assumed confines from which it must break loose in order to rise higher still. And the Rebbe finishes, may God grant everyone a kosher and freilich in Pesach.
That's why the Jews can never live in one spot for many years. That's why.
Unless, again, by Jews you see one of two things. Either you're embracing the God soul or you're figuring out every other ism in order to fill that void. I heard a nice mashal for this idea that the Rebbe is saying, which is a violin or a guitar. Right? You want to make it free. You want to make it free. So you loosen up its strings. It's got to be a very schwach guitar. Part of freedom means allowing something's true essence to express itself. Just like the example of the plant, the tree. Giving it space to express itself is really just hiding what it's really meant to be and damaging what it's meant to be. Space doesn't mean freedom. Means being fine-tuned and actually properly wound, but wound by the right strings, wound by my real strings, not by my lower stimuli, which therefore block my actual stuff to come out. Right? I think this actually correlates, I don't know what side tangent, with the concept of tznius in Torah, right? Allow people to express themselves. So when you just allow people to express themselves, they're just going to express their lower selves and not the rich character of their personality. When if you actually leave proper confines, then you could actually see people as people and not just as to whatever first meets the eye, right? So just like a free guitar doesn't mean one that has loose strings. It means one that's actually very, I'm not a musician, but it has to be properly tuned, fine-tuned, but properly tuned for it to express itself. Or is someone in prison if they're bound by is your DNA imprisonment or is that your identity, right? I'm bound by my DNA. I wish I could just be unstuck by my DNA.
So you want to be female or something?
Female, you want to be a banana, right? You want to be a carrot. That's not called freedom. That's just called respecting you. Everyone is bound and no one's infinite, and therefore meeting and... What's the point I'm trying to get to over here? Freedom doesn't mean letting loose. We're meant to be free people. Being free people doesn't mean being not serious. Sometimes freedom means actually getting serious. Exactly, there's a difference of hailus. And freedom means actually really looking deep and saying, what is the real me? And as Rebbe is saying over here, first of all, we're humans. And a human has higher koiches, has the ability to look up. We need to embrace that by Pesach, to actually try to be free people. But also, not only are we people, we're Jews. And even if we're using our intellect and trying to find theoretical meaning, we all know that those are layers, but really our actual meaning is in the fact that we're one with Hashem. And when we wind that, again, not in an unhealthy way, and if someone just has OCD and they're using Judaism as a way of expressing that. But when someone actually says that God cares about me and I care about him, so let me actually wind myself up and try to strengthen that connection with him, and maybe take on something a little bit more seriously, that's not called making yourself stuck. As a Jew, that's called making yourself free, because it allows your actual DNA to express itself. Just like if you are allergic to something and you're respecting your allergy, you didn't just make yourself stuck. You made yourself more healthy. So too, that's a Yid with Jewish DNA. Anyways, fascinating idea. Easier said, hard to live, but hopefully this gives some good perspective. Give some good perspective about Pesach and a proper approach towards having a meaningful and kosher Pesach.